Albert Camus' Absurd deals with a philosophical feeling that can be felt when we meditate on life's meaninglessness. So just when we're zoned out or we're sort of relaxing, I guess, from either the day or before the day begins, we sort of are in a setting that's tranquil enough, but it's also harsh enough. Nature is just waking up, and this feeling of absurd comes upon us when we meditate upon the relationship between us and the universe. And it's not a relationship between us and other people, although it can be once we solidify these foundations of what the absurd really means. But it's really a conflict between rationality and irrationality. The universe is irrational. We're rational creatures. We want to figure out things. We're asking questions. We want there to be meaning. We're inquiring after these things. But the universe will have none of this. The universe won't allow for any of these things to exist because of its very nature, of its being meaningless and being irrational and being sort of quiet and tame and chaotic and fiery and destructive and death. And it's actually the interesting thing about Albert Camus is that he started his main paper by asking, should suicide be legitimate? Because this is the only philosophical question: is if suicide is the right thing to do? And really, he comes to the point where, because of the absurd, people might want to just stop. What's the point of living? Why continue on with something that's always going to be meaningless? And why continue on doing stuff that's futile? And he comes to the point that, well, in the myth of Sisyphus, that you can achieve happiness even by doing something that's futile. Just adopting this stance that I'm going to be happy doing this. I'm going to accept this absurdity that's been given to me by the gods or by a higher authority, and just go along with it and do my best. Have a great sort of attitude. Or you can say, well, in death, basically, there's just as much meaning in death as there is in life. There's not much to find in death, so what's the point of committing suicide? So basically using the absurd logic to refute suicide. And so that's that's sort of like a positive thing that comes out of his works. And also the myth of Sisyphus Sisyphus, I think that's how you say it, is a great work because it shows you how a man who's just doing the futile thing of putting a rock up a mountain, a big stone up a mountain all day long, and then watching it fall down every time, he actually chooses to do it with happiness, and he chooses it because it's not because it's the only thing to do, or it's because he's angry, really, but he's sort of accepted the absurd, and now he's fighting the absurd. Now he's scorning the absurd, and he's found he knows he thinks he'll be happy if he continues with his job. So that's and there's also The Stranger by Albert Camus, which is like depicts this man who knows he's living in illusion, and he's not very nice to his mother on her deathbed. He's not very nice to a man. He shoots a man point blank for no reason. He's with a woman that's sort of promiscuous and doesn't really ask for much in return, and it's a little bit of a strange relationship they have. And so, in The Stranger, Albert Camus paints the picture of an individual who is living without lying, and he has to protect himself from societal expectations and societal norms and conditioning at the time, which said that, even if you do lie about something, that it would be much better to lie about being nice to your mother at her deathbed than to say that what you actually did. But no, he's a man of truth, and he's a man of honesty, and he continues to go for that. And even when he goes off to his death is by execution. He has this like enormous honest persona and honest personality built up, and he just finally sees the world as absurd, and he realizes that he's been living in this illusion. He's been living in this relationship too, where the world is full of sunsets and heat and summer afternoons and beaches and water and smells of the salt, and all this comes together as sort of like of the world, the picture of the world in his head, and he realizes this is good enough. This is the absurd. This is the product of my acceptance. And so Albert Camus, a very interesting philosopher, and he was really just a writer. He didn't really want to consider himself a philosopher because at the time there were so many other different, very major philosophical trends going on. There was nihilism, there was religious philosophy, and there was existentialism, and he would say that all three of them would be like philosophical suicide or mental suicide or suicide for the mind, where you kind of let go of your notion of truth and honesty over illusion, versus these notions of existentialism and nihilism, which nihilism would take away all meaning from the universe, but existentialism would say, no, we create our own meaning. We're gods. We can create our own intended meaning. And then religious philosophy, like Soren Kierkegaard, who would say that, no, if we have faith, man's faith is bigger than the higher collective mind or higher reason, then he definitely should go that way. And basically he retreats into religion to form hypotheses about meaning in the universe. So so he doesn't go down those routes. He just stays within his own absurd shell, which is really interesting and fascinating to the absurd, because there's much to, I think, be gained by the feeling of the absurd, and either through like meditation or through art, through literature, through film, through all those things. Those are very interesting topics, and they're not really talked about much in society because, as I said earlier in The Stranger, a lot of these topics are resisted by the main characters of his absurdist fictions and art pieces. Okay, thank you very much for listening. Bye.